Is that the first one? Good morning. Welcome to today's school board hearing regarding the proposed 2025 millage rate. This hearing provides an important opportunity for community members to share their perspectives and insights, and we are here to listen, learn, and work together to make informed decisions that will benefit our school district. The 2026 original budget tentatively reflects a 17.675 maintenance and operations millage rate. It's important to note that because our school district funds debt service, including the principal and interest on our outstanding bonds, through an education special purpose local option sales tax, ESPLOST, the 2026 original budget does not include the bond millage rate. This hearing is one of 3 public hearings mandated by Georgia law before the Paulding County Board of Education can finalize the millage rate and adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget. We will begin with a short presentation on the proposed 2025 millage rate, followed by an overview of the hearing's procedures and guidelines. And then afterwards, we will invite participants to the podium to share their observations and feedback. Are you ready? Ms. Amber Thesba.
All right, good morning. This is the first of our 3 public hearings on the millage rate, which is part of our budget approval process. First, we wanted to give some insights, a little bit of the millage rate overview. The first is the Paulding County roles and responsibilities. And as you may have received, assessment notices were mailed on May 30th. And when you get the tax bill, the property values are determined by the market trends and are set by the Paulding County Board of Tax Assessors. If you have any questions or concerns about the assessed value of your property, we ask that you please contact the Board of Tax Assessors, and they have an appeals process, but the deadline is July 14th. Tax assessment notices reflect the 2024 property ad valorem millage rate, and the Paulding County Tax Commissioner produces the official digest in late July or early August. And then the Paulding County Board of Commissioners approved the millage rate in early August. Then moving into the roles of the school district, we're responsible for our responsibility on the tax bill. The Board of Education sets the millage rate for ad valorem property tax, which is a percentage applied to the assessed property value, and the Board of Commissioners approve the millage rate. Property taxes are a primary source of local funding for our school district. As Ms. Collette stated, the M&O millage rate of 17.675, which is the same as our prior year, was utilized in our advertisements and our tentative FY26 budget, and that includes no bond millage rate. Bonds are paid for with ESPLOST, but if there was a bond millage rate, it would need to be approximately 1.257 to meet the FY26 debt service requirements. Then looking at the net M&O digest, it is projected to increase 4.1% to $8.8 billion. Of that increase, only 2.5% was due to real property reassessments. Exemptions grew 9.5% to $2 billion, and of the gross digest, or that was 19%. 19% is the highest percentage of the gross digest to be exempted in 20 years. Looking at some enrollment growth, another piece that we wanted to reiterate is that we are the 15th fastest growing school district in Georgia, and we have to balance against the constitutional and federal mandate to provide an adequate public education for its citizens that is provided by general taxation rather than through tuition. And as we've touched on in previous presentations to the board, we rank the highest in residential digest percentage among large districts, then the lowest in non-residential digest percentage, but we still maintain a comparable millage rate to the average.
One thing that I was just going to mention here is we included the 24 millage rates for our surrounding larger school districts there. The bottom right. The one that you'll see this, we're actually slightly higher is Bartow, and the thing I just wanted to point out was in that previous slide where we were at 14%. Remember, Bartow was the third highest. We were all the way to the left of the chart. Bartow is 3 away from the peak, and there was 53% or so of their digest is non-residential. So that's one of the reasons they're able to be a little bit lower than us, but they're still pretty close at 17,430. But just wanted to mention that on this slide. Yeah, thank you, Amber.
Then as of FY 2024, local revenue per pupil was 23% lower per pupil than the statewide average, and that resulted in a $47.6 million deficit. Prior to the Great Recession, the deficit was 25%. This is significant given that approximately 1/3 of our district's revenues comes from local sources. And then when we look at our revenue per pupil, we collect 77 cents for every dollar in local revenue collected per student compared to the statewide average. Even when considering state funds, federal funds, and equalization that are specifically designed to even the playing field, we still only collect 90 cents for every dollar in total revenue. Then when we look at our SPLOST collections, we collect only 55 cents for every dollar collected on average by our neighboring school districts. The real impact to not having a bond millage rate, though, is that we only have 36 cents available for every dollar, which is a 35% reduction. To summarize, we remain as one of the largest, fastest growing, and low wealth school districts in Georgia. Despite these challenges, we maximize our limited resources to provide the best possible education for our students. We rank highest in residential digest, but lowest in non-residential digest among other large districts, while still maintaining a comparable millage rate. Looking at the statewide average, we are 23% lower in local revenue per pupil, which equates to a deficit of $47.6 million, and we only collect 77 cents for every dollar in local revenue compared to the statewide average. If a rollback rate of 17.178 mils were to be used, this would decrease our budget by $4.4 million. We did want to draw attention to the public for our video out on our website that Jay Dillon and the Communications Department put together. And this provides an understanding of how we develop our budget and the unique challenges that we face. And this video can be found on our main webpage. And then just in conclusion, remember, if you have any questions or concerns about the assessed value of your property, please contact the Board of Tax Assessors, and their appeals deadline is July 14th.
All right, good morning. The procedures and guidelines for today's hearings are defined by Board Policy BCBI, Public Participation in Board Meetings, which includes rules of conduct for the meeting, public speakers, and attendees. Procedures include, but are not limited to, the following. Individuals desiring to appear before the board must first complete a sign-in sheet and affirmation. Speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to make their comments. Speakers should address the Board of Education as a whole, not individual board members. The board will not respond to comments or questions posed by citizens, but will take them under consideration. However, board members and/or the superintendent may ask you questions for clarification. In the event they do that, that will not count toward your time that you have been allotted. Speakers should speak into the microphone and be aware that their comments may be broadcast live, filmed, photographed, or recorded by the school district or other non-district media sources. Those unable to attend the hearing are encouraged to submit their written comments to the superintendent and the Board of Education through the Office of the Superintendent.
So at this time, we have Jeffrey Baird. If you would come to the podium, please.
Mr. Baird, I will keep keep the time for you. When you get to about 4 minutes, I'll get your attention until you got about a minute left to go.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Baird, and I've been a Paulding County resident for the past 22 years. When I moved here, Paulding County was quite affordable to live in. However, as time progressed, it has become far less so. Since I refinanced my home back in 2011, my monthly payment has gone up more than 50%, partially because of homeowners insurance, but also that while the state of Georgia now offers us tax relief, this very board has been socking it to us in property taxes harder than ever. And to think that you want to raise our millage rate, that's outrageous. This is unfair to me because, first of all, I've never used your educational services. We send our son to a private Christian school. And we've worked hard and sacrificed a significant amount of standard of living so that he can have a good education. And as expensive as that's been, I have zero regrets about it. But I have to pay for his good education and Paulding County's education that my wife and I have never used, the latter under the threat of foreclosure. Where's my tax relief? This is also unfair to lower-income families who, once able to afford a home, are now being taxed out of it. That doesn't serve the interests of Paulding County's children. I would suggest you look into what Paulding County's children are learning and how they are learning it, and change the way children are being educated instead of confiscating more of my money and throwing it into a system which I am unconvinced even works at all. And I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
Is there anyone else here that wanted to sign up to speak today? Are there? No one else wanting to speak? All right.
Ms. Collette, I have a comment. I just want to clear up something he said. I think you're under the impression we were voting to raise the millage rate or proposed a millage rate. That is not true. We are not voting to raise the millage rate at all. The millage rate that we have is a rollback rate where we've rolled it back the last 4 or 5 years. The only thing that would potentially make a tax increase is the property values have gone up. The millage rate is not increasing. So I just wanted you to clear that language up for you so there's no perception that we're raising the millage rate. There has been a proposal, I believe, in their initial that the county is going to raise their millage rate on their tax levy, but not us. Ours is staying the same. Now, we do have kind of an error, like you said, about the House Bill 581, where we voted to opt out of that. That allowed up to a 4% increase in the inflation, which is what we're dealing with now. And by us not doing anything, we're less than the 4%. So whether we opted in or opted out, ours is well below what that House Bill 581 would have allowed. So I appreciate you being here speaking today, but I did want to clear up, and I want it on video and I want it on record, that this board is not raising the millage rate. Would my fellow board members concur with that statement?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Steve, would you be able to explain how the little bit that, I want to ask our superintendent, Mr. Barnett, to explain that the increase of money that's coming to the board was almost completely absorbed by the mandate from the governor with our insurance that we have to provide for our teachers. So where we got a $4 million increase, it was taken up, 3.2 million of it was taken up by an unfunded mandate from the governor. So we're not getting any money more than we got last year to use. So if you could.
Actually, you just did a good job explaining it. So the net increase for next year would be $6 million. That's what we've advertised in the 5-year history. But we have two major draws on that money next year. You just mentioned one, 3.2 million, where expenses for health insurance, which was moved from a state expense to a local expense, and also the reduction of the equalization grant was $5 million. So just those two things right there are actually 8.2 million. Somehow we've got to squeeze that in to 6 million, and which is why we had to reduce staff so significantly. Yeah.
So I think what the confusion is the announcement that goes out to the public in the organ. I think you probably saw the newspaper article, which it says we're proposing a millage rate increase. That is not the case.
It was a proposed tax increase, not millage rate.
Right. Well, I think it said it says proposed millage rate increase. Yeah. So we are not increasing the millage rate. because property values went up, even at the same millage rate we're at, the budget will increase slightly, whatever it is, 1%, 2%, 3%. So because your home value, last year, if your home value was $100,000 and you paid $10, this year it's $125,000 and you're paying slightly more because of the increase on the value of the home.
So
Now,
what you put in the paper is incorrect? It's not a millage rate increase?
what we put in the paper is mandated by state law. That language is mandated by state law. We do not control that language, correct, Ms. Thesba? I mean, basically, if property values go up, that language is required by the state of Georgia, not by the county of Paulding and not by this board, to be put in that way, and it's an extremely confusing statement.
So is it your millage rate or is it not your millage rate?
Our millage rate is not going to change from last year, period.
But our taxes are going up, so that's,
Well, if your home value went up, then your tax will increase slightly. I think it was about $70 on a $300,000 house, roughly thereabouts. But the board is not raising your taxes
Not raising the millage rate.
by the millage rate.
but y'all know everybody's taxes went up, so everybody's value went up, so, which is what y'all are continuing to try to do, to make our taxes go up, our values go up. so
If you
our
want to
taxes go
speak
up.
at the podium, ma'am, you are on the list.
Hi, I'm Shannon Price. Most of y'all know me.
Ms. Price, I'm gonna start your clock at 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you got about a minute left.
Hi, I'm Shannon Price, and I've been a resident of Paulding County, I'm not going to say how many years, but a long time. And this thing with y'all not saying it's a millage rate, but it is a millage rate, our taxes have gone up, yes, ma'am. Our taxes have gone up in this county every year for an incredible amount of years. It is getting to where the people that have lived in this county and have property, an extreme amount of property, are having to sell it off because they cannot afford to keep it. That's why all these properties, all these little sections of land are getting sold off throughout our county, and subdivisions are popping up all over the place because people are having to sell off sections of their land because they can't afford to pay their taxes on it. Y'all know that as well as we know that. Something has got to give in this county. We cannot continue to build 400-unit housing developments and 600 thousands of houses all over this county. We don't have the schools or the roads to handle it anymore. We are busting at the seams. Our roads are ridiculous. A lot of y'all have lived here for years and are just allowing this and continue to allow this to happen.
Ms. Price, we don't control what gets built in the county.
Y'all have voices here,
I understand
and your
that, but-
voices mean something, and you know it, Mr. Nolan.
It would be great if what you said were true, but none of what you just said is true. What you said is we control.
I'm not
building in
saying
this
you
county,
control
and
things
that is not the
here.
case at all.
You can have a voice
And we
that
work
means
with our county
something.
commissioners to try to
I
limit that voice. But
completely-
in 1972, this county was zoned R2, blanket R2. We had nothing to do with that, and we have zero control over whether someone
Y'all could
sells
do
their
something to
property.
try and put a hold on building, some kind of
We
moratorium
would
with
love
the
it. I tell you what,
commissioners.
if you can show us how to do it legally, I'll get in the boat and row with you all the way there, but
I wish that were true.
gonna happen.
Because I'm trying, I'm going, leave it here and going to the commissioners meeting about
that's
this.
the meeting that you need to have that conversation. That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
as well as y'all, I mean, if y'all don't try and do something and stop all this, it's gonna just continue to get worse and worse. And if that's what y'all want, I mean, I know a lot of y'all have been in these seats for a long time, some of you not as long. But if you don't do something, y'all gonna rue the day, because y'all are all gonna end up getting voted out of your seats. So you better make some changes. I yield.
Madam Chairman? In case it hadn't been said out loud, a lot of times, the Board of Education does not legally, constitutionally, have anything to do with the tax assessor's office. There is a legally elected constitutional tax commissioner. Outside of the influence that a board member can vote, it's nothing to do with anything that happens in this building. Board of Education cannot legally, constitutionally spend tax money collected for schools off of school property. We can't build a road. We can't engineer a road. We have absolutely no power or authority legally to do anything outside of school grounds. And unfortunately, I know civics is lost these days, but the Board of Education has very, very limited authority, very limited. It's spelled out in so many places: federal law, Federal Department of Education, state law, State Department of Education. There's very, very narrow things that we can do. And I, for one, implore people, read it yourself. There's only so much a Board of Education can do. Now, we can advocate, but that's limited too. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Morally, our first duty is for the future of these children and how we put forth the best opportunity for them. However that comes, that's first and foremost. And I, for one, am very judicious with the time, energy, and effort to go advocate in some other arena when we haven't fulfilled our mission to the children. These kids are not going to get the third grade back. They're not going to get the fifth grade back. So my first duty morally, and I swore oath to it, is to make sure these kids have an opportunity, not to make sure a road does or doesn't get built. I'm a taxpayer. I feel for people. But honestly, if you believe that that's what we should focus our attention on, you're in the wrong building.
I do have one more thing to say. I did some research about. I did some research about the trajectory of our tax bills and our property values. If you go back to 2002 and you look at a graph and it shows the trajectory of the millage rate of the property values from 2002 to 2023, it's on this is the line, the trajectory, okay? If we had stayed on that trajectory, we would be, say, right here, okay? But we had a Great Recession. So here's the trajectory, and it went a little bit above the line, and then it dropped down dramatically. When we dropped down to the bottom in 2008, 9, 10, 50% of the United States of America was underwater in their mortgage. Their property values were less than what they owed on their mortgages. So if you follow me, the Great Recession, and then it started to come back up, and it came up a little more dramatically because of the drop. But where we are right now is lower than the trajectory. So do you understand me? So there's a little dip right there, and all that space in between is money that we have saved over the last 15 years. So over the last 15 years, we have not paid the amount of money that would have been incrementally increased. So the reason that you see such a dramatic increase is because of the Great Recession. So we are still under the assessed values of our homes than we would have been if we had stayed on the same trajectory and not had a Great Recession. And that is a really important part of this piece, because it seems like they jumped so dramatically, but it was because of the Great Recession. So we are not that far off. We're actually under where we would have been if we had stayed on the same trajectory. And if anyone wants a copy of that graph, I'll be happy to send it to you. Just email me and I'll send it to you. Or Mr. Barnett has a copy of it. So I think that's a very important part of this whole equation that we haven't even looked at. We haven't looked at that piece of it, and it's really important. So just consider that.
Madam Chairman, I've got one thing to add, and I think we're all in agreement that everybody in the room hates property taxes. I don't think anybody in here would tell you that we do, but the only thing that's going to fix that is when a state legislator stands up and they put a bill in to eliminate property taxes and replaces it with a sales tax. And we've had a Republican majority in the state house since 2002, and I have not seen one bill, especially from any of our Paulding legislators, that have offered to do away with property tax altogether and add a state sales tax percentage, whether it's 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents on a dollar, where everybody pays, not just the property owners having to flip the bill. And I'll be the first to tell you that I'm in favor of that, because if we could eliminate a property tax, it would make 7 people on this board's lives much easier. And I'm sure it would with any city council, any commission, any other elected governing body in the state of Georgia. So that is my proposal. As a citizen that would speak at that mic, I would go to a town hall with a state senator, a state legislator, and say, my name is Jeff Fuller, I'm from Paulding County, please put a bill in to eliminate property tax and replace it with a sales tax. And I want that on record that I'm in favor of that, and I don't think anybody in this room would disagree with that. So until that happens, we have the hard job of trying to manage these property taxes to do what Mr. Chester said, and that's educate our kids for the well-being of their future. And I'm telling you about the roads, Ms. Price, I agree with you. The roads have not been adequate for a long time. What if in 1975 Cobb County would have said, hey, we're building all these neighborhoods, but we're not going to widen Johnson's Ferry Road? It would be a total disaster in East Cobb at this point. So when I go down and it takes me 45 minutes to get from Ackworth to Dallas, I get upset about it, but then I think about it. Wait a minute, these orange barrels may be a headache, but at least now they're finally getting these roads where they need to be. And as they continue to build the houses that we all disagree with, nobody up here is going to say that we want more houses. As a matter of fact, we have a voice on the planning and zoning who ends up voting no most of the time, and he's the lone no vote on that out of most of those meetings, and I would encourage you to watch those. But I'm not going to fault the roads. It's slow. The process is horrible. You turn down any road in this county, you see a new neighborhood, you see an orange barrel. It's horrible. But at least they're getting the roads where they need to be. The hard part for us is we have to build a new school every time they build new houses. And it takes time to do that. I mean, we're on our second new school in 4 years. We're about to be on our third. And to clear the air, Mr. Barnett, at some point in the near future, or not in the distant future, there will be a new high school at some point. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's evident that all this stuff is coming, but it takes time, and it's a result of unplanned growth since 1972. And I wish we could do it. If there was a vote that we could all vote on today to say, don't build anything else until our infrastructure's ready, you're not going to get a disagreement from anybody up here, because I can promise you it's a headache for this board, because we're here to educate kids. We're here to shake their hand when they go across the graduation stage. I'm here to go to football games. I want to be involved in what the students are doing, not dealing with how come our property taxes are through the roof because we can't control how many houses are being built in the county and how it takes us so long to drive from North Paulding High School to South Paulding High School for a football game on a Friday afternoon. So I feel you, I get it, and I'm on your side, but the only reason I spoke up earlier is I just wanted to clear the air that we're not raising the millage rate. The language that we're required to put in the newspaper, it makes our job harder, but that is state law verbiage that we have to put in the paper, and the county falls under those same guidelines. That's all I've got.
Okay. That's all that I have signed up for public speaking, so unless there is anyone else that has anything to add, are we good? All right. I want to do a final reminder that this is the first of 3 public hearings. All concerned citizens are invited to the remaining hearings that are going to be held at this location tonight at 6 p.m., June 10th, this evening at 6 p.m., again next Tuesday, June 17th at 8 a.m., here at the Paulding County Board of Education. On record, 3236 Atlanta Highway, Dallas, Georgia, 30132. If anyone is interested in attending those meetings, that will be the second and third of our public hearings. At this time, hearing nothing, we're set to adjourn. Thank you so much.